Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmommy.wordpress.com. Today's video is geared towards the parents who are thinking about homeschooling but are on the fence about it. And actually this video could be good reinforcement for those parents who are starting to feel like maybe they made the wrong decision. So what I want to share with you today are 10 reasons to homeschool. Making the decision to homeschool will probably be one of the most important decisions that you've ever made for your kids in your life. And it's hard to make a balanced and educated decision about homeschooling when you don't know anyone in real life who homeschools, or you've never spoken to anyone who has done it. Unfortunately, there is so much misinformation going around out there about homeschooling that people are just confused about what it is and what it's actually like. A lot of people are imagining it, especially because of the schools being shut down right now. They're imagining homeschooling as being something where kids are sitting in front of a computer and their teachers are sending them work online to do, or they're sometimes having to watch their teachers do lessons on the computer. And that is not homeschooling. That is homebound public school, and that is something completely different than homeschooling. So I just want to get that out of the way right away. So anything that is like an online public school is not homeschooling. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people and a lot of news organizations that are referring to this as homeschooling. But what it really is doing is it is covering up the benefits of what an actual homeschool looks like. So when I talk to you today about 10 reasons to homeschool, I'm talking about the traditional homeschool, the homeschool that is parent-led, where parents make all of the educational decisions and where they have to follow laws that are separate from like public school laws or from private school laws. Many states have separate homeschooling laws, and that is what I'm referring to, is actual homeschooling. So the first reason to homeschool is safety. And, it used to be just about keeping your kids away from bullies. It used to be about keeping your kids away from kids who are maybe drug pushers. But it has kind of evolved now, and we're also keeping kids safe from school shootings. We're keeping them safe from predatory school employees and predatory students. Unfortunately, there are a lot of students out there who have this sort of behavior, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in society. And we also have to keep our kids safe from the school employees who we could also identify as drug pushers. The school employees who are trying to push medications onto kids that they consider to be, disruptive to the classroom. And it happens to a lot of people, and there are a lot of people that are pulling their kids out of school for this reason. So that is another thing that it will keep your kids safe from, is from your kids being over medicated just so that they can make it easier for the teacher in the classroom. So the second reason to homeschool is values, learning without indoctrination. I don't think that I have to go too deeply into this, because I think that most people see what is going on in the schools today. And if you haven't seen what is going on in the schools today, you must never read the paper. I said the paper, it's more like a news app now. Who actually reads papers anymore? Or never talk to anybody. It is everywhere. We have kids who are kindergartners who are being given sex education. We have drag queen story hour. We have children who are being confused about what is the difference between male and female, boy and girl. We have so many issues nowadays where the waters are getting completely muddied, because it has gone from being an academic style of teaching, which, to be honest, it hasn't been an academic style of teaching in a really long time, but it's gotten far and far worse, and it is all about leftist and statist indoctrination right now. And it is really hard, especially when you have a family, when you have parents who do not believe these things that are being taught in school. When you have parents who believe in an absolute right and wrong, who are conservative, who are Christian, all of our beliefs, everything that is foundational to what we believe in, is being crushed as soon as our kids get to school. And I know that a lot of times parents will say, oh, but I teach my kids, I tell my kids differently when they're at home. But really, when your kids are at school 30 to 35 hours a week, how much is that actually helping? So the third reason for you to homeschool is that your kids will get an individualized education. School is really one size fits all when it comes to education. And I think that most people realize by now that there are lots of different ways to learn. There are lots of different learning styles, and not every child will develop on the same timeline, nor should they develop on the same timeline. Kids are not cookie cutter images of one another. I don't know how many times I've said that here on my channel, but it's something that I'm going to keep saying because I think a lot of parents need to hear it. Kids who are homeschooled can learn things in a way that works best for them. If they learn best by doing things with their hands, that is how their lessons can be in a homeschool. If children learn best by seeing things with their eyes, they can do that in a homeschool. If they learn best maybe by watching videos or maybe by going out in the field, doing things outside, that is how they can be homeschooled. And I hear a lot of parents talking about how they do not want to take their kids out of school because their kids have an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. And I have actually talked about that a couple of times here because I have a son who also had an IEP. But here's what I'm going to tell you. And this is actually a snippet that a commenter left the one time. She's a former teacher and she said it perfectly. Homeschooling is the ultimate IEP because it's not just kids who would have had an IEP in school who have that individualized education in homeschooling. Every child who is homeschooled can have that individualized education. On top of that, parents and children together can decide what it is that they're going to learn about. They can decide what sort of curriculum that they're going to use, what sort of homeschooling approach they're going to use. It does not have to look like the factory style learning that happens in every single school and unfortunately fails far too many kids. So the fourth reason to homeschool is to help your child keep their self-worth. How many kids have been completely beaten down in school? Whether it's from interactions with other kids, whether it's from ways that they are treated by teachers, whether it's from them butting heads over the things that they're learning when they realize that the things that they're learning do not mix with the things that they're learning at home. Or we just talked about IEPs. What about all of those kids who have IEPs? When my son was in school, he lost so much of his self-esteem because he always looked at himself as being stupid because he had that IEP. And his IEP was for ADHD and reading comprehension, and they even admitted that he did not need the IEP. They only had it in place, they said, in case he ever needed it. I think that it was just so that they could get the funding for him. But it brought him down. It dragged him down, and I will tell you that he is 20 years old today and still has self-esteem issues and still says the same sort of comments like "I'm stupid" that he started saying while he was in school. Your kids who are homeschooled can avoid that. So the fifth reason to homeschool is centrality of the family. We see all of these teacher parades going on right now, and I just can't wrap my head around the fact that so many people are looking at that as a good thing. Kids who are at home with their parents are exactly where they need to be. And I think that it's a sad world when children and families feel like they're missing something because they're not with their teachers 30 or 35 hours a week. Kids need their parents, and that is something that we as a society have forgotten. We need to bring that back. And on top of that, how many times have you heard of parental rights just being completely usurped from the schools? You have parents who have to ask schools for permission to take their kids on vacation. You have parents who will call their kids off sick or call them off for some reason only to find out that the school didn't like their excuse and considered it unexcused when they, in fact, are the parents. They called the school, but for some reason, the schools are able to override their parental authority. Think about all of the times that your kids have gone to doctor's appointments, dentist appointments. It's not enough for the parent to tell the school that your kids are going to those appointments. They want proof. They want a note from the doctor. Think about all of that homework that is coming home after kids are already in school, 7 hours a day. They come home at night, and then on top of that, they have to take away more family time by doing 2 hours of homework every single night. Over and over and over again, parental authority, parental responsibility, and the family itself is completely being stomped on by the school system. And keeping the family central is imperative to a healthy society. And I think that we see the repercussions of what happens when it's not the center. So the sixth reason to homeschool is socialization. I know a lot of people try to talk you out of homeschooling because of socialization, but I'm going to tell you this. One of the reasons that we homeschool is because of socialization. When you send your kids off to school every day, you don't know who they're interacting with. You don't know who their friends are there. You don't see how the other kids are behaving around them. You don't know what the kids are saying to them, what sorts of things they are hearing. And the teachers, they can't see everything that is going on when they've got 25 or 30 kids that they have to oversee. And I read a book called oh my gosh, it's by Israel Wayne. Does God have an opinion? It's Education, Does God Have an Opinion? And in that book, he made a great illustration about, I think if you have, a bag, I'm going to say potatoes. I think he used apples, but I'm going to use potatoes. If you have a bag of bad potatoes and you take one good potato and you put it into that bag of bad potatoes, is it going to turn all the other potatoes good? No. Those bad potatoes are going to turn the good one bad. And that is one of the things that will happen to a lot of kids. I'm not going to say all kids. Some kids do escape school unscathed. A lot of them do not, though. And what does the Bible say? Bad company corrupts good morals. So real socialization does not happen in a classroom. It is not natural for kids only to be around people the exact same age as them and who live in the same neighborhood as them. When you are out in the real world, you are interacting with people of all ages, from all walks of life, in all places, not just confined to a building every day. So socialization, true socialization, which I prefer to call community because socialization is for dogs. So a true sense of community is a great reason to homeschool. So the seventh reason to homeschool is slow living. I do not miss waking up every morning and having to rush around all the time, trying to grab everybody's backpacks, their lunches, their shoes were always missing. It was always a mad rush in the morning, and someone would always inevitably lose their temper. And try as I might, I used to lay everything out the night before. I used to think that I had it all together, but something would always happen, that there was always something missing in the midst of everything. And it would be the same way when the kids would come home from school. They would come home from school, all the kids have been gone all day, they're grumpy, they're tired, they were bored, but they were overstimulated at the same time. And so they're all fighting with one another. They're all fighting over who is going to get help with their homework first. That is not the life that I want for my family. And, add to that, on top of that, all of the after school programs that a lot of parents feel are necessary to send their kids to. It is nice to wake up on your own time, to start school in your own time, and to be able to leisurely go throughout the day and not have to worry about doing things at a specific time that other people tell you they have to do it. Yeah, of course, when you're homeschooling, if your kids are involved in activities, there are going to be times that they have to be, for example, at softball practice at 6:30, or they might have to be at co-op at 10 o'clock in the morning. But this is something that is on your terms. It's something that you could end any time that you chose. So the eighth reason to homeschool is a continued love of learning. So many kids just completely lose any love of learning that they had before they started school. Before kids start school, a lot of them are really curious. They're really excited. They're always exploring things. And you just look at them and you see the wonder in their eyes. And how many adults wish that they could see the world through their kids' eyes? But once those kids go to school, after just a couple of years, that light kind of goes out of their eyes. These kids get so used to an adult telling them what it is that they have to learn, what is worth learning. And far too often their own interests get pushed to the side, or they get told that those are for later. That's for when you're older. And so kids really don't have that sense of wonder about the world anymore. They don't have that love of learning that they once had. When you are homeschooling your kids, they have so much more time to pursue their own interests, because homeschooling does not take 6 or 7 hours a day. Honestly, it can get done typically in anywhere from, I'd say, 2 to 4 hours a day, even less than that. If you have a kindergartner, you can get done easily in like 30 minutes a day. So your kids will have so much more time to just follow through on the things that they want to learn about. And hopefully they will be able to maintain that love of learning that a lot of little kids have and lose when they're older. Now, the ninth reason to homeschool, I say kind of in jest, but also not in jest. And here it is. Lice. Lice is probably one of the most unpleasant experiences that my kids ever had while they were in school. And it is something that happened often because our school had a policy where they would not let parents know if a classmate had lice, because they said it was not a health issue, it was a social issue. So you would be sending your kids to school with other kids who had lice. You would never be told that it was found out that someone had it. You would never be told to check your kid's head until it finally ended up and you would see your kids scratching and scratching. It would be so out of control. It took us months the one time to get them all out of our heads. So I'm just telling you now, lice in itself is a reason to homeschool. And now the 10th reason is what is the most important reason to me, and that is this. I truly believe that homeschooling is decreed by God. You know, you hear these commands over and over in the Bible about things that parents are supposed to do for their children. And another thing that you will notice in the Bible is that there is a difference between the pagan institution or the pagan temple and what the believers are supposed to be interacting with. And you can bet that the early Christians would not have been sending their kids to those pagan temples, because they would have been learning things contrary to what they wanted their children to believe. And that is what we as Christians also need to remember. Too often we hear that I'm sending my kids to school to be salt and light. But if you actually think about it, if you look back at the illustration with the potato, you know, that is unfortunately what happens. We have good intentions. We want our kids to spread the love of Jesus. But we have to remember that the Great Commission was not commanded to children. It was commanded to adults. Children need to be prepared for this. They need to be trained for this. And if a lot of adults feel uncomfortable when they're around unbelievers, imagine how your child feels when they are surrounded by that all day long and that they're not even supposed to talk about their faith. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave it over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.